The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back, in case you're wondering, with George. And in case you're wondering, it's Easter Sunday as we record this, and George is taking the High Holy Day off, his High Holy Day. I'm here in his stead, and I play Fenneman to his Groucho. So I'll try to carry on. Ronnie Rabinovich, who is on this panel on a regular basis, is here. Chad Rubin is here. And we are blessed with a return guest to the airwaves. He is a Renaissance man. He's an author. He's a journalist. He's new to Oregon, so I hope he's there for the right reasons.
Yes.
Gabriel Schechter, how are you, sir?
Hi, Ralph. I'm looking at rain just about every day, but it's fine with me because I'm not buried in snow like I was a year ago.
Well, I can tell you something that may or may not be a big surprise to you, but in the next coming few months, you will have the greatest weather. Won't last for long, but it'll last all through the summer, and it's absolutely fantastic. I had the privilege of going up through your territory on a yearly basis through July, in the month of July, go up, cover the Northwest League for Tops. I was the Tops representative.
Oh, okay.
And I went everywhere from Bellingham to Yakima to all over.
Walla Walla.
Well, I don't remember if I got there.
A long time ago, I went to graduate school in Oregon. So when it was time to get away from winter, naturally, I came back here. I love this state and the people, and I'm very happy to be here.
Where was graduate school? Was it in Eugene?
Yes. I was there when Donnie Reynolds was the star of the baseball and the football team, Harold's brother, who later played for the Padres.
I talked about him with Doug Gladstone. He is one of those pensioners that is getting ripped off by the baseball system, and that's for another show. But
right. Can I ask you a question, Ralph?
Yes.
Ralph, have we celebrated Rusty Staub's birthday yet this morning?
His birthday, or
yes. He would have been 74 years old today.
Oh,
today?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Rusty Staub and Phil Necro were both born on April Fool's Day.
Huh.
Very interesting.
Wow. That is interesting.
Rusty passed.
He was a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
I got to give it to the Mets. The Mets come up with, he passed opening day morning, early in the morning.
Yeah.
And yesterday, the third game of the season, the Mets put this classy patch on their arm.
Mm-hmm.
A Rusty, like a little autograph of his, and his a tribute to him that they're going to wear for the rest of the year. But they had that sucker done within 3 days.
Yeah.
And it's done and on there, and I'm sure in the gift shops for just $40. But that notwithstanding, it's got to be a multi-billion-dollar industry, or what is it if not that?
Exactly.
But it was I thought it was a classy move, and whoever put it together, I'll give the Mets. And the Mets are my team, so when they do something like that, I like to acknowledge it. And his passing is a tragedy. 75 is young. I'm getting up there, and as we all are on some level. And mortality sucks. How about that for a scoop?
You heard it here first.
Yes, I'm sure. First, nobody's ever thought in those terms before. Mortality really is not good, and never will be. So, not only Rusty dies, but the glider, Ed Charles, passed away.
Yes.
Weeks before that. So
that's right.
We can use any one of these podcasts as an obituary on a regular basis, and you can just
yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately is right. Yeah.
So let's keep from being in one, and with that, Gabriel, you have a bunch of stuff you'd like to talk about. You, as George Case sent me a memo when I reminded him last week that you'll be on, you and he did some work with Sabre, and maybe you can first tell us about that work together, and then get into your upcoming projects.
I wanted to talk about these Neil Leifer books that I've done. Neil Leifer, the famous photographer, did over 100 cover shots for Sports Illustrated from the late 50s through the 70s, and he worked for Life magazine for a long time. And the preeminent sports photographer, certainly one of them. And about a dozen years ago, I worked on a book with him for a German publisher called Taschen, T-A-S-C-H-E-N. And they did a collection of Neil's baseball photos. It's called Ballet in the Dirt, and I did the captions for these photos. Fantastic photos. And a year or two later, we did a football book, his football photos. And the first famous photo that he took, you've probably seen it. It's from the greatest game ever played at Yankee Stadium. And he's got a shot of Alan Amici crossing the goal line with the winning touchdown in overtime. And it was taken from the end zone. So you see Amici coming toward you, and you see the outline of the Yankee Stadium facade in the background. I think you've seen this picture.
I think I have. I think that was Jimmy Patton standing there as if he's watching.
Yeah, right. And a great story. That photo was taken on Neil's 16th birthday. He was 16 when he took that.
Oh, my God.
How did he get there? He was one of the volunteers who escorted wheelchair-bound fans to a special section behind the end zone. And so as an attendant for someone, he got onto the field, and then he bribed the security guards with coffee and stuff, and they let him stand at the back of the end zone. There's even a photo of the book when Steve Myra was kicking the game-tying field goal. You can see Neil standing under the goalposts. It's great. 16 years old. So we did that book, and that.
Amazing.
I know. And from that, a year later, he was working for Sports Illustrated. That's how good he was.
He was to Sports Illustrated what Ozzie Sweet was to Sport Magazine.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, iconic photographers, but they were so much different styles. I mean, your fellow had action photos, and Ozzie Sweet was basically portraits, set up way with such background and such artistry that stood out. notwithstanding his selection of characters. I mean, sport,
Yes.
beautiful color photos when I was growing up, and we cut them out and go down for autographs with them.
Gosh, Sport was a wonderful magazine, wasn't it? I subscribed to it as a kid, but it wasn't until I worked at the Hall of Fame library and came upon article after article from Sport in Players' Files, and then I would read them. Now, as an adult, they're even better than I remembered. They had a depth and a personality to their profiles of athletes that you just don't see anywhere else.
Arnold Hano,
Oh, yeah.
who's been a guest on the show, he wrote A Day in the Bleachers, which was
Right.
an iconic book about the Giants and Willie's catch. And it all revolves around that. And that's one, we all have our books that we reread every 5 years. I've got maybe 10 of those going on. All of Golenbach's books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mark Harris's fiction. He wrote a...
Oh, yeah. The Southpaw and Bang the Drum Slowly.
Yes. And,
I want to...
It took forever. It must have been something like that. The last of incredibly great works of art. If you can picture Sal Magley in upstate New York growing up with it,
Buffalo, yeah.
That same side of the small town upbringing and going down on the train.
Yeah.
What he's portraying as the Polar Grounds, naturally, and I just love reading that stuff. And Brosnan's books, and my God, we've been so blessed with literature. You had the privilege of archiving that stuff in the
Oh, it was fascinating. I got to tell you a funny story about the football book. And I hate to say it, but the football book is much better than the baseball book.
Really?
For three reasons. First, the editor was better in choosing the photos. Second, the football photos have more action in them, and so the photos are generally better. But the best thing about it, they have trouble finding someone to write the introduction, and they finally made a deal with Jim Murray's widow, Linda Murray, to use Jim Murray's writings. They patched together a few columns as an introduction, and I was allowed to use Jim Murray quotes in my captions. And that alone makes it a better book, because Jim Murray is just so wonderful. Sort of a modern...
Archer Coffins.
Excuse me?
He said, "Gentlemen, start your coffins."
Yes. Murray, the king of the one-liners. So let me give you an example. My favorite caption that I've written. There's a portrait of a lineman. He was an offensive guard for the 49ers, and I can't remember his name, but it's a close-up, and you see his face, and you see turf drip hanging from the helmet and the face, the crosspiece, and he's filthy and wet and muddy. And so here's my caption. Jim Murray wrote, "To a lineman, the football is only a rumor. Witness," whoever it was, "who touched the football twice in a 13-year pro career." Guy, he had recovered 2 fumbles in 13 seasons. Now let me tell you the funny story. Taschen is a German publisher, and so these books are in English, German, and French. And at the very end of the football book project, I got an urgent email from my editor, who had gotten an urgent email from the German translator, who was struggling with some of Jim Murray's slang. And there were two problems. One was a reference to swaps breezing the rent money. What on earth? Swaps breezing the rent money. Well, Swaps won the Kentucky Derby, 1956, thereabouts. And so it was a race, just a simple race, but he blew it, and this guy lost his rent money on it. Swaps breezing the rent money, right? But the one that totally flummoxed them was there was a passage where the defense blitzed, linebackers blitzed, and one of the offensive linemen yelled out, "Doggy, doggy." That's all because referring to Red Dog, right? Blitz.
Right.
But the German translator's inquiry was, "Doggy? Doggy? Surely this cannot mean the sexual position."
That is very funny.
I thought of this poor German schmuck trying to figure out Jim Murray's slang. Oh, my gosh.
Well, there's
anyway,
no literal translation in Yiddish for anything. So why don't you try to get a Yiddish translation for this?
Yeah. Anyway, after we did the football book, Neil wanted to do a boxing book, because boxing's his his best known photos were boxing. The Muhammad Ali shots that he did early. Excuse me, the famous shot of Cassius Clay standing over Sonny Liston after he knocked him out. And there are overhead shots of guys lying flat on the canvas. He did all these great photos, and we were going to do this boxing book.
Chevalo was lying there.
There was one with Cleveland Williams, was one guy in a photo, Chevalo, yeah. So 10 years ago, we talked about doing this boxing book, and it didn't happen. They did a couple of Muhammad Ali books that I did a little work for, and I just found out 2 weeks ago that it's time to do the boxing book. And Neil, I talked with him last week. He says it's going to be his best book. His boxing photos are his best. And the book is going to cover 60 years. His first, when he was 16 years old, he bought a $5 ticket to Yankee Stadium to see the first Floyd Patterson-Ingemar Johansson fight in 1959. And he took a photo of it with a little Yashica camera, and a year later he was stringing for Sports Illustrated at the rematch. And he's doing a fight in Vegas in May.
Do that. He had moxie as a kid to do that.
Yeah, really.
Kids can, follow up on their dream and not let people stop them. It's a great example. I remind everybody that the worst thing you could do to your kid is step on his or her dream. And
absolutely.
I don't know this gentleman, but I know his parents were either unaware of what he was doing, which would have been cool.
Right.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And
yeah.
that in mind,
that's good.
That in mind, or supportive would have been that. You got to recognize early on, if you're a kid, if your parents aren't going to be supportive, you just got to circumvent their and go around, because who needs another negativity that from people? It's just blood.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to ask you, Gabriel, to get off the subject of books.
Sure.
How much you miss Cooperstown, weather notwithstanding. I mean, but there's just that something of being in the library at Cooper.
Yes.
That you can't.
What I miss, Ralph, is that sense of the Hall of Fame library being the crossroads of baseball history.
Right. It's fabulous, isn't it?
Go ahead, Ron.
It's really fabulous. Tim Wiles were good friends. I was good friends with Tim. I know he was in that library. I've spoken there a few times. Actually, twice in the bullpen theater.
Right.
Jeffy Idelson is a dear friend. And know a lot of those people. Wonderful Brad Horace.
Anytime you walk into that library, you're liable to find the most prominent historians there and just folks who wander in there and want to look at somebody's file.
Right.
And I've made some lifelong friends there before I even worked there, just from being at the library. The facility.
Gabriel?
I was a researcher at the library for 8 years, from 2002 to 10. Yeah.
Did you know Sue McKay?
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
Sue and I are very dear friends. Yeah.
Sue's great. She's one of the collections people.
Yes, she's terrific. I was down there once. I had to wear white gloves, and I held Babe Ruth's bat and Jackie's uniform. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I know. Well, let me tell you a great story. The Hall of Fame has 3 missions. They say there are 3: preserving history, honoring excellence, and connecting generations. The connecting generations is the one that happens so often in the library. And here's the best example. A guy came in one day, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and he said, "Do you have a photo of that Sandy Amorose catch from the World Series?" I said, "Yeah, well, I'm sure we have it." And so we got the file, and we're waiting for the file to come up, and he said, "I'm in that photo." "Really? You're in that photo?" And we got the photo, and he showed me. All you can see is his face. But here's the story that here's what he told me. He said, "I was 8 years old. My father took me to that World Series game, and we sat just inside the left field foul pole in the second row, just a few feet in fair territory." He said, "When Yogi Berra hit that ball, I could tell right away it was coming right to me." Really, it was a very high fly ball, and I looked up at it, and I kept my eye on it, and I just knew it was coming right to me, and it's coming down, and all of a sudden, there was this blur from the left, and that was Amorose. And the crowd exploded, and in the photo, you can see the men around him are standing up and starting to cheer and everything, and you can see his face peeking around somebody's hip as he was trying to get a view. And he said, "My father put his arm around my shoulder and he said, 'Son, you just witnessed history.'" And here he was 50 years later, seeing that photo for the first time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That
existed?
That's connecting generations.
When you're telling the story, I thought he was showing you that's me in there, but he didn't know it until that
he had seen the photo in the paper the next day, and so he had seen it when he was a kid, but he hadn't seen it since.
It's sick, yeah. What in those days? Where do you find pictures like that? Right, exactly.
Right. If you didn't keep the newspaper, you'd never see it again.
News was not putting their stuff on the internet at that time.
No.
Yeah, isn't that great though? And that kind of thing happened, quite often.
Yeah. Wow. That is.
It's a fabulous place.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous.
I'll tell you about another photo, okay? And sorry if I'm monopolizing this, guys.
This is what
I'll tell you.
Please
All right. So once in a while, a major leaguer, ex-major leaguer, sometimes current, would come to the library, and Jim O'Toole came to the library one day, and I was a big fan of his when I was a kid. I was a Reds fan, and my father took me to Philadelphia one time, and I saw him pitch a shutout, so I was thrilled to have a chance to meet him. And he brought his wife and 6 of their 10 kids with him. It was really quite a day. And he wanted to see a particular photo. And it's a photo of Roger Maris's 61st home run, taken from ground level in right field, zooming in on the plate, and Maris's following through on the swing. And there in the first row, behind the plate, were Jim O'Toole and his wife. And that's what he wanted her to see. See, there we are. The Reds had clinched the pennant a few days early, and they sent O'Toole and Joey J and their wives to New York to scout the Yankees. And there were the 2 guys and their wives right in the line of the photo behind Maris.
Isn't that something?
Wow. And Joey J was the first little leaguer to ever make the major leagues.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And that Cincinnati team got creamed, but they were pretty terrific.
They were a great team.
Eddie Castro.
Oh, absolutely. Gordy Coleman at first base, Gene Freese at third, Elio Chacon, Eddie Casco, Robinson, Pinzin, Wally Post, and Jerry Lynch in the outfield. O'Toole, Jay, Bob Perky were the 3 big starters. Jim Brosnan, Bill Henry in the bullpen. Yeah.
And speaking of books, Brosnan wrote a classic. 2 classics.
Oh, yeah. 2 classics, yeah. Pennant Race and The Long Season. They're both excellent.
Excellent. And it's interesting that I got to meet and befriend Marv Grissom, who happened to be the pitching coach. I guess it was The Long Season because he was with St. Louis, was Brosnan in this book. And
in the first one, yeah.
So, yeah, he comes off writing about Grissom comes off as a classy guy. Brosnan's writing, and here it is that I got to be friends with Grissom.
Cool.
That was cool. And yeah, Brosnan wrote. Talk about humanizing players and how things were. He's sitting in the bullpen in his writings, and here comes it's a day game, and here comes his wife and kid, his baby in arms, and here comes the wife. She's headed down towards the bullpen from the stands, and she's got this frantic look on her face. I can't handle it. She's down for help from Jim. You know, which the whole thing was, they're family, they're humans, and it's not just you throw out a guy. Well, you're going to get 2.56 ERA from that's what I expect. That's what's on his baseball card. Yeah, but every day is different. You come to work, you don't feel unpaid. You got family, whatever it was. Here she came with the kid, and he knew straight on a game. You know, I'm going to be coming in and what have you. Just had a way of humanizing the experience of being a human, which terrific writing. I don't know if he was awarded, if there were writing awards in those days.
I don't think so, but I mean, he basically got blackballed because of his writing.
Oh, really? From baseball?
Oh, yeah. This happened around 1965, and of course, the books were a few years old by then, and he had ruffled some feathers by telling the truth about the way players behave. And then he wrote an article that, I want to say it was in the Saturday Evening Post, one of the magazines, and it had to do with, I don't know if it was specifically the reserve clause, but it was essentially, protesting their inability to determine their own livelihoods. And he really ruffled the feathers. And they called him in and they basically said, you can be a journalist or you can be a pitcher. If you want to keep pitching, you have to either promise or sign something saying you will not publish. And he wouldn't do it, and he never got signed again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, baseball has a lot of gall. You're dealing with someone who's an author or is a writer. He's going to get published with that. How did you they didn't want. Excuse me? How did you find out about that?
I interviewed Brosnan about 25 years ago. I wanted to write a book about Marvin Miller's early years in the Players Association, all the pre-1970 stuff, and I interviewed Miller to start with, but about 25 guys who had been player reps in the 60s, and I couldn't get a publisher, so the book didn't get done, but Brosnan was one of the guys I interviewed, and he went through the whole sequence with me.
Wow.
He got blackballed. It's
legal recourse. Did he speak of, because this is more of a litigious era than that was, certainly.
You can't force someone to employ you. I mean, he was aging by baseball standards. By then he was 35 or 36, so he was going to be a fringe player anyway.
And that, yeah. Well,
it's hard to it's easy to forget what it was like for the players a half a century ago. That's how much time has passed. Even though we were all there when it happened, it's still a long time ago, and it's easy to forget how tough it was for the players when the owners had 100% of the power.
Absolutely.
They sure did.
Pendulum has swung. It really hasn't. The unions are incredibly strong today, as they were back. As there never was a union back then. But,
no, there wasn't.
Yeah.
That's right.
Both sides are making bank. Back then, the owners were making bank, and the players were pretty much.
We're making bookus.
Yeah, by comparison. We got a little minion going here. I don't know what's going on.
An Easter morning minion. There we go.
Easter morning. It's Pesach too.
Yes.
All the Michigas from all over the world comes together on this. And isn't it ironic that it's April Fool's Day? That
it's a perfect congruence.
You're right. Something I don't know, but something's up there and it's working. I don't know what it is, but I don't believe in any of that stuff. Maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio. You ever hear people say stuff like that? I don't believe in astrology.
I thought Scorpios didn't believe in astrology. It's like, did you know that it's bad luck not to be superstitious? I'm here all morning.
And have.
Oh boy.
Hey, let me ask you, because you've been silent, Chad Rubin, what would you like to ask a man who has sat in the Hall of Fame library for 8 years? Gabriel Schechter. I can never spell it now. I can't pronounce it. But I've been getting good at spelling it of late, haven't I, Gabriel?
You've been getting better.
Yeah,
kidding.
Okay, you can't please everybody. You can't all the time, but you can't please somebody and nobody.
I know.
And I have like a big fault. But I am trying with you. Gosh darn it, I'm going to measure up. So, Chad Rubin, I hope you're still there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
Are you there? Okay.
Speak up, sir.
I'm here. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Did you want to ask Mr. Schechter anything?
No, I'm just listening to him. I find everything very interesting. All those pictures that he was talking about earlier really fascinated me. Because some of those pictures are iconic, and how they get those pictures are just amazing.
Well, what's amazing to me, there's another podcaster on this network named Bill Cashados.
Oh, yeah, I know Bill.
You know Bill, and you know the excellent work that he did in conjunction with Dick Perez, the Hall of Fame painter. And
yes.
his work is similar, the way you describe it. You're writing for a photographer the way he wrote in his book, The Immortals, that they collaborated on. Did you see a parallel there, or did you think of that when you were writing?
No, I didn't think of it when I was writing. There are. I looked at a collection of Charles Conlon baseball photos and the captions for that, and funny, I was looking more at captions than I was at photos when I was trying to get a hang for a feel for it.
Right.
Someone asked how you get these photos. Let me tell you about one of the Neil Leifer baseball photos. He, at Dodger Stadium, early 60s, he wanted to get a shot of Maury Wills stealing second base. So he mounted a tiny camera at the base of the second base bag, facing first base. So I was like, on the photo, the camera was attached to the bag. And he got an incredible photo. It wasn't Maury Wills, and it wasn't a stolen base. It was Willie Davis stretching a single into a double. And the photo is like Willie Davis's foot about to destroy this camera, which it did. And he slid this hard slide right into the bag, and he wrecked the camera, so Neil Leifer only got this one shot. But it's an amazing shot of Willie Davis sliding and his foot like just inches above the bag. Fantastic.
Excuse my ignorance. How do you set the technology up to?
Well, it's a remote control because he did the overhead things. He did photos from the roof of the Astrodome, or I should say the ceiling of the Astrodome, and a number of Madison Square Garden, and so it was the shutter was operated by remote.
And he was able to do that in the 60s with Willie Davis sliding in by remote control? They had the technology for that? Didn't
yes.
Wow.
For all I know, he was one of the first to take advantage of it. I don't know that, but I know that he put Smithsonian magazine did an article about that photo because it's just so remarkable.
They allowed the camera on the field.
Well, it wasn't on the field. It was sort of embedded to the bottom section of the base, so it didn't.
Okay.
In other words, there was nothing sticking out, say, that a baseball could have hit and been deflected by.
Okay.
It was recessed into the base itself. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. I can't now, you mention it in words. I can't wait to see the photo. one plays off the other, is what I'm saying. The photo you'd want to know what it's about. You want a good caption needs to be there, but yet a good caption is nothing without, you explain the photo without seeing the photo. Picture's worth 1,000 words, that thing.
In these caption books, they give me like 30 or 40 words for a caption.
Right.
And my method has become to write 2-sentence captions, one sentence to explain literally what the photo is showing you, and second, a quote or some kind of perspective, historical note or sidelight, just to add something subjective to, what the photo is literally of. So that's my method.
I know how something like that on a day-to-day basis can keep your mind alert. When you're writing a book, any book, do you write, and I may have asked you this before, when the spirit moves you, when you think of something to write, or do you make an appointment with yourself and sit and write for extra hours?
All right. I can answer that. I usually have 2, 3, 4 things going on at once between writing and editing. And the things I'm writing I'm always writing in my head.
Okay.
I'm looking for a lead or something extras. I'm even an important email. I'll write it in my head for days beforehand.
When you're writing it in your head, do you, like when I'm writing jokes, when I'm thinking of ideas for the show or the network, forget things. You wake up, you think of something, it's a great idea, you write it down, and boom, it's gone. Does that happen to you?
Oh, all the time.
You're human then.
It happens. Oh.
Frustrating, because the book of stuff that I forgot would have been a bestseller.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to finish my answer, I'm always writing things in my head, and then at some point it forms itself into something solid enough that I'll sit down and write it.
Okay.
I've been working on a poker book lately, and I find myself spending a lot more time thinking about it than writing, than typing. But I think most writers are like that. I had an aunt who was a very well-known artist in California, and late in her life, her health was poor and she could only work in the studio for an hour a day. She told me, I'm creating art in my head 24 hours a day. My time in the studio is just a frenzy to get as much of it done as I can, and in the time I have. But I think that's most cerebral people.
Very well put. Most artists are that way, and you think
I think
weirdest of times. Excuse me. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, I think what we actually produce is only the tip of the iceberg of what's going on inside our heads. But I think that's true of most people.
And
we're always doing much more in our imagination than we get a chance to in reality.
And it comes out in proportion of how much time we have to be imaginative, where we don't have to have life's logistics get in the way, where we're thinking about, the things that people all go through in life.
Look at all the famous writers who had to exist with mundane jobs just to pay the bills.
Right. Exactly.
True. Very true.
Same thing with actors. Comedians, anybody that's in an art that's subjective. You can't put an immediate price tag on a second baseman who hits .320. That kind of thing. But sometimes they don't quite pay for turning a word. They don't pay proportionately. Turning that phrase, or it isn't recognized that easily. But Let's put it that way. Genius, untapped genius. Genius I admire is yours. You've carved a life for yourself where you're doing exactly what you want to do. And,
and speaking to the point of a minute ago, I live in kind of genteel poverty, which allows me to do my writing and not worry about how little money I make from it. So I kind of enjoy myself.
That's what life's all about.
I want to say though, speaking about writers, I mean, writers are just mental athletes, and there are a lot of writers who can write a great sentence, or a great paragraph, or even a great short story, but can't write a novel. And novelists who can't write nonfiction. It's like a pitcher who has a great fastball, but not quite the command of it. Or an infielder who's great going with his left but has trouble going with his right. I mean, creative people have exceptional abilities in some areas and are lacking in others, just like physical athletes.
Mr. Schechter, you have so much to say. We've talked about
just getting started, Ralph.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm leading. I want to get you started, and that's what I'm leading up to. We talked a little bit of months now of the possibility of you coming to the network and doing a podcast. And I hope I can continue to keep you thinking along in those directions, and we can make some steps to actualize it.
I'm ready, willing, and Gabriel.
Okay.
That's great.
Then
hey, let me, Ralph. Let me just say something. I think Ron and Chad are probably back east. I'm guessing. I know Ron
I'm in
is.
Minneapolis. Both of us are in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. Having moved from New York, where I just spent 15 years, back to the West Coast, already in 2 days of the baseball season, I lived in the West most of my life, and recaptured the pleasure of being able to watch games all day long. You know, living in New York, the night games, I could only watch one night game. Now I've got a game. I'm going to start listening to the Mets game in about a half hour. And then I've got, East Coast games I can watch, West Coast games I can watch and listen to. Sure. It really is a bonanza for a baseball nut.
You got to tune into the Angels playing the A's today.
Ohtani, yeah.
Yeah, Ohtani. Basically he's a two-sport athlete. Come up and you can play Major League Ball as a position player / hitter, where he's a DH, and pitch. You're a talent, and you're interesting young man out there. So going to watch you against the A's today at 4 o'clock, and I just want to pay some note to Billy Ripken, who does this show on the MLB Network.
I'm looking at him right now as we speak.
Is he an instructor? Now, we think of Billy Ripken, we think of him with the bat and the Topps card.
Yeah. He's really like a professor up there. He really is.
He is absolutely enthralling guy. He breaks down the game like with his charts and his graphs, and
he's eye for detail. Just the little details of how plays are made.
Oh my God! The pitcher covering first base, the route that the pitcher takes to first base, the sacrifice bunt as opposed to the suicide bunt as opposed to
the safety squeeze, which I'm looking at right now. Yeah.
Okay. It's incredibly entertaining and educating, and for someone who didn't grow up knocking the dirt off my spikes. This is as close as you can get on for just an education. You come out of watching him, and you can coach Little League and help the kids. So, no joke. So many parents so many coaches out there are doing wrong by kids.
Yes, they are.
You should have an instructional thing before you even get near a kid.
Yeah.
And to cover a bunch of different things in our society. That's the way life is. Hey, kids, gentlemen, kids.
Yeah, of all ages.
Of all ages, baseball, sports, whatever when we're talking about memories and what have you, it's just like talking about it as we talked about it when we were kids, and trying to learn as much about it as we can. And I love doing this, and I love having you, Gabriel. We will talk during the week, and we'll
figure something out.
And that'll be fun doing. And Ronnie, you're going to be with us on Wednesday night. Ronnie
yes, sir.
is on a number of shows on this network. He is the very, very, how do you say it? He just carries on Jackie's tradition and teaches kids in groups, in seminars about Jackie Robinson's legacy.
That's excellent.
Yeah,
he was a true friend of Jackie's. Their fathers worked together. And he got to meet him as a kid. Jackie Robinson went to his bar mitzvah.
Oh my goodness, Mazel Tov.
Yeah.
The real thing,
guy.
if you went to Jackie Jr.'s bar mitzvah, Ronnie, that would have been the story.
That would have been right. That would have been funny, right? Yeah.
We would have had something, huh? This close.
May he rest in peace. Yeah.
May he rest in peace. Both of them, crying out loud.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And the rabbi that would have bar mitzvahed him. It's Pesach. I got to cover everybody.
That's right. That's right.
Chad, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Always enjoy it. And Ronnie, of course, the guest in George Case's absentia. You're the writer, Gabriel Schechter.
In absentia. It's been a pleasure, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back next week with the famous George Case, and we may have another new podcast coming to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. That excites me in a non-biblical way, if you will. So,
very good. Very good.
That's the best I can do.
On that note,
yeah.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I enjoyed doing it more than you enjoyed listening, I can assure you. But notwithstanding, everybody here had a good time, and that's what makes me happy. So
that's right.
We'll be back next week. Adios, everybody.
Thank you.
Adieu. Bye.